Hey there, I'm Connor Trinneer, and we are at Comics Online.
And I'm Dominic Keating, also at Comics Online.
Guys, I'm so excited to celebrate the world of Star Trek with you in Chicago. Thank you for sharing your time with me. What are your earliest memories of Star Trek before joining the franchise?
Oh, well, the original series as a kid. Coming home from school, it would be at 3 o'clock. You had the original series, then there was Perry Mason, and then Mom and Dad would come home from teaching.
I watched it as a kid growing up in Leicester. First of all in black and white, and I've said many times, nagged my dad rotten to get one of the first colour TVs in our street, which was about the size of that table with a louvered door. It was, for me as a 7-year-old, it was an action-adventure show. I didn't really glean to the, ethos of it. It truly was just a very colourful, in colour, action-adventure space show. But I did love it, yeah.
How was the actual audition process for Enterprise?
Mine was pretty rigorous. I had 6. And
that's why I've handed in the mic.
Yeah. I went in and I punted the first one. It was one of the worst auditions I ever gave, truly. And then Ron Surma, the casting associate, said, Ron smoked a lot. Okay, Connor, go back out there for an hour and come back in here, and we'll do it again. And I came back in, and it was an hour better, which was still not very good. For some reason, they brought me back in, and then I had audition.
You were
with
fearfully good looking.
I couldn't help myself. And then did the tests, and the feedback on the test was, the screen test for the network, that I hadn't shown enough awe in one of the scenes. And I was like, well, can I come back in? All over the room, man. Let me, And I was looking at the breakdowns to see if they'd released it again for other auditions. They hadn't. And then they waited a full week before they told me. So it was long.
And you were just, brimming with awe.
Oh, yeah. You wait.
You went to see your awe coach.
That's right.
And what about you?
One of the easiest audition processes I ever had. I was already awed up. They'd seen me for Voyager, so Rick knew me, and I thought I was going to get that guest star. I didn't get it. Livid. I did tell my manager, if they ever call again, tell them to go sling a hook, and then they did, and it was like, okay. It was pretty simple. I did make one sort of faux pas. I went in, maybe a little posher. It was a button-down, stiff upper-lipped Brit, and I sort of went in a bit clipped, and maybe sort of, sergeant, captain in the army in the Second World War, and they said, love what he's doing, but it's too clipped. Can you make him more blue-collar? So then I, really messed it up, and I went in with a thick Yorkshire accent. I'd seen Ian McKellen play Iago to Someone's Othello as a right good councilman from Yorkshire who would never aspire to be king. But so I went in there with this voice, and of course, it was a shit show. Really. Mary Howard went, is that Scottish? And Branagh goes, Mary, it's stupid, it's Welsh. And I looked at Rick, I went, can I do this in my own voice, Mr. Berman? And that'd be a good idea. So I managed to pull that out, and then it was fairly plain sailing after that. I was, with the studio audition, and network was a joined thing at Paramount because they were the studio and the network. And I had a slightly out-of-body experience. Floated up onto the ceiling, went, get back in here, kid. After that it was me and John Billings who were the first there. And we both got cast that same day. It was.
Were you the first cast?
Yeah. And we went out for a cup of coffee. I remember him ringing his wife Bonnie from the car because I gave him a lift, and she goes, "How'd it go?" And he went, yeah, we were pretty excited.
So I love behind-the-scenes production stories, and Enterprise had a very interesting element where halfway through the series, you guys really changed dynamics of the show, going from standalone episodes to more of a serialized, overarching story.
Indie arc,
yeah. So from a behind-the-scenes perspective, did it change the energy and dynamics on the set when you started getting to tell a little bit more of a long-form story, or how did that play out for you guys?
9/11 did all this. It was a response, I think, for our show about the 9/11 experience, as it were.
And 24 was the big hit show
Yeah.
on telly at that time, which had introduced this possibility and idea that you could have a through arc through 24 episodes, and so they were slightly mimicking that with 9/11 as their touchstone.
Besides the change in actual storytelling approach, the evolution of the Enterprise was another interesting dynamic of getting to see the technology change and grow and introduced to all these different alien races. What was a highlight for each of you, just as far as getting to see something on screen or getting to play with the technology for the first time?
Well, the mistakes that were made with the transporter, I think, was, for me, that was, I had a part in that, and that'd be the most obvious one, I think, with the phase pistols.
Yeah, I got to introduce the phase pistols.
Right.
Yeah, 2 settings, Captain, stun and kill. It'd be best not to confuse them.
I'd like to pivot just for a moment. I've met many of your peers from Stargate Atlantis as well. Absolutely loved. So I'm going to come back to Star Trek in a second, but I would just love to hear getting to step into the villainous world of the Wraith. What was that experience like?
When Enterprise ended, I had said to my agent, I don't think I want to do another sci-fi show out of the gate. And, I don't want to get typecast and all that kind of nonsense. And I saw on the breakdowns this character of Michael in Stargate Atlantis. And I called him up and I said, listen, I know what I said, but I'd love to read for this. Looks really interesting. And he said, all right, let me check. And he called me back 5 minutes later and he said, well, it's yours if you want it. So, oftentimes when you go into an audition, your take on something gets a little bit of note or a nudge or this or that, but I went right into the role. And I don't think that they had planned this to last as long as it did. But I got the idea about halfway through filming the first episode that I think they're going to have me back. And it was interesting going from, a good old Southern boy, all-American to... No, I don't think he was evil. It wasn't his fault. But he did do some unkind things. But it was a great deal of fun. Look, anytime you're in the playground and you're playing at stuff, being the bad guy is always fun, and if you're not a crazy person, you can take off that makeup, go home and be the lovely person that you are in real life. You can you really can. And so I think it shows in the playing of it that I played him with great joy in that kind of environment that he was in.
Well, I'd like to go backwards a little bit further. What drew each of you into the world of acting and entertainment? What was the hook for you?
A girl?
I remember going to RADA and them asking me the same question. I said, well, the hours are good, and you get taken out to supper quite a lot, I believe. Didn't get in.
I came to it late. I was 20 years old before I'd never thought of being an actor prior to actually becoming one. I was playing football in college, and I was going to be, and I still would love to be a teacher and a coach, but the path has taken a different turn.
I started as a kid, at school plays, and then university. They had a very good theatre, not program, but it was extracurriculum, but a very good sort of off West End theatre. But it took a minute to, graduate with a history degree and then go, okay, am I really going to do this for a living? That took a good few years to go, I sort of backed myself into a corner where it was like, there's too many years to explain what I haven't done, why I haven't done it, and let's just get on with it. And
but you were also sort of exposed to actors from your mother.
Yeah, so my father had passed away quite young, and my mum took in actors in my local town and put them up from the Haymarket Theatre, so they lived upstairs. And my mum had been an actress, so that came out after my father passed away. So I guess it was in my, in my blood, and then certainly upstairs in the house. And and Mum always
fun.
They're fun, and they make a lot of noise late at night. And Mum was very, we went to the theatre a lot, and I saw a lot of plays, and I guess, it just, when you're afforded an education that I should have been, I don't know, a professional person in some way, that was the gulp moment. Am I going to be a lawyer or a lot of friends were getting into advertising. That was the big thing in London in the early 80s, the advent of Saatchi and Saatchi and the likes of these advertising agencies were going gangbusters. And I probably might have had a go at that. I put a suit on and had a few of those interviews, but it just, something inside me was like, it's not from you, Dom. And so eventually it was like, take a deep breath and get on with it.
I think we're all thrilled that you got to suit up with the Enterprise instead.
Thank you, mate.
So my last question to each of you would be, if you had the opportunity to join any series, not necessarily as your respective characters, just more of getting to play with any of the other casts or the characters in general, which one would you wish to do?
I'd probably elbow my way into either DS9. We both like that very much, and I've just been watching Strange New Worlds, and I tell you, the production value on that set is amazing, and they've got a fun playground, and I wouldn't have minded that. I mean, their green screens are actual, scapes. It's incredible what they're doing up there.
I mean, it's got hundreds and hundreds of connected monitors.
Yeah.
Yeah. No longer the stick with the black piece of felt and the orange tape.
Or the tennis ball.
Right. And the script supervisor holding it up, and that's what you were talking to.
Yeah.
I'd say for me, I would love to have been in the cast of Deep Space Nine.
Christopher Lee was quoted of saying to Peter Jackson when he was doing one of the things, he was acting to a tennis ball on a metal pole. Peter, just this isn't acting.
Would you like to plug the podcast as well? Tell us what's the hook for the podcast?
Well, it's a long-form chat show, and we dive, deeply into actors and directors, writers, behind-the-scenes guys' lives. What led them to Trek, and I think you'll find it very interesting. You've looked at it, haven't you?
Absolutely.
The first season was terrific. We started with Bill Shatner, the man himself. Ended with Scott Bakula, which we hadn't seen Scott in about 8 or 9 years, so that was an emotional moment. And this season we just kicked off with Nana. She's got a book coming out on the shelves for Christmas called The Women of Trek. Open a channel, and Michael Dorn, who's over there, I just see came back with Michelle Hurd talking about their duet on Picard. And next week I'm doing all the talking. We've got Armin Shimon and his wife Kitty Swink and Jonathan Frakes coming in. They'll be talking a little bit about PanCam because that's their big charity that they both all support. And then
You're doing great.
I'm doing great. And then Michael Westmore is going to come and visit us again because he's leaving town. He's going to go and live in Nevada where his daughter Mackenzie lives. So we thought we'd get him before he shoots off. And he's just been making a documentary with our producer, Dave Zappone, and 455 Films. So we're looking forward to talking to Michael again. He's amazing.
Yeah, and you can find us at the Decon Chamber on YouTube. We air on Sunday mornings, 11 o'clock Pacific time, on all your podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of those. And all of our shows are libraried on YouTube, and I'm sure on the podcast platforms. So we's out there.
Yeah.
You guys have been very busy, so very excited to continue with your podcast. Thank you so much again for sharing your time with us.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much, Matt.